what's the step-by-step process if somebody wants to, ask for help from Daniel? What's the first stage? What's the first step of the funnel? And then can you take us through the whole step-by-step process you follow in order to help out the pre-seed seed startups?
Sure. So as I mentioned, yeah, we start with that three big pillars, if you want, on milestone funnel. First one being the context mapping. During the context mapping part, we usually have 2 workshops with the customers that we work with. And the whole focus during this part is to understand as much as possible the product and the business in itself, but also to help the founders to set kind of baseline and like have an understanding of this is what we build from like onwards, and also for us to have a good understanding of like what's there and kind of how the founders are thinking.
Yeah.
We run a couple of things during this sessions. One of them is like a product 360, which was just in a way to see what is inside of the product. So we discuss about the problem, about the customers, like almost like an overview of all of the big important parts. Their vision for the next 2 years, kind of what are the metrics they are tracking, competitors, if they have any kind of challenges inside that we should know about, that might be a blocker moving forward, and these parts. Then we do an assumption mapping just to understand like kind of where do they stay, what evidence they have, what are the critical assumptions that have no evidence and we should know about, maybe try to tackle them in the next steps. If we do interviews or usability testing, sometimes we can ask about those things as well, and just try to get as much insights and knowledge as possible into the building phase. Definitely competitor mapping out user personas, and doing user journey mapping as well, either customer journey map, either user story map, depending on the information and the stage of the product. So kind
Got
of
it.
just like in what we do. Sometimes we do, like, given that these products are usually already on the market, or at least in one stage or the other, sometimes we do review any kind of data they have. That means analytics, user feedback, if they have something. Sometimes we do interviews with the customers, and for that we use kind of like a jobs to be done framework.
So this
Otherwise,
all comes under context mapping, or is it
yeah,
under prototype? Oh, it all under
all
context
comes
mapping.
into
Okay.
context.
Okay.
And the last thing is sometimes we do UX audits.
Okay. Cool. So that's your step one. Step two, you said prototyping, right?
Yeah, step 2 is like, we, with all this information, and once we have like a definition of this is the problem, this is the challenge that we have to solve, and that's usually what you get from all those information that we collected, we define it together with the founder. Then we move into prototyping, or creating and testing solutions, how we call it usually. For this, for those that are familiar, we use a process that's very similar to the sprint methodology, like the book in itself from Jake Knapp, and in a way something similar to that, slightly tweaked. And the whole sequence is basically, we kind of do an alignment, because this is where, if they have other team members, we kind of invite them, at least one engineer, somebody maybe from marketing or support, whoever can add plus value into this. And then slowly we move into doing a bit of a research together to just see how other people try to solve similar challenges, and then going into sketching, then fleshing out kind of how somebody should go through those solutions. And then at the last part, we prototype the solution that we agree upon, and then we end up testing that with 5 to 7 customers.
Oh, 5 to 7 customers also. Okay. How do you
Yeah.
do that?
One-on-one calls. Usually, because as I mentioned, these are people that are usually quite close to their customers. So finding 5 to 7 people is not a big problem most of the times. And we jump on a usually 45 minutes to 1 hour calls with them. We record everything. Once also we take notes, like I use a Miro board, and I put all of my notes in the Miro board as well. And then with the UX researcher, she goes through the videos, extracts her parts of the insights. I have my parts of the insights. So we combine everything together. We
Mm-hmm.
create a summary document with all the insights from there, and a summary video as well. And then we have a discussion with the founders to go through the things that work, the things that didn't work, and what and how we should improve them, and also to prioritize them.
Got it. Got it. Quite extensive process actually you follow both in context mapping and prototyping. Is there
Yeah,
any?
usually like in 2 weeks we kind of do the whole 2 to 3 weeks we kind of do that part.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Is there a third step also? Is just two?
The third step is usually the design phase. So once we have the prototype tested and we have the insights, then we move into uh, putting all those pieces together, create the design system, and all the assets needed for development. And we prepare the Figma document then for the development phase and hand it over to them.
Okay. This does. I'm sure that once you finish with asset designing and the Figma documentation and everything, there must be quite a lot of founders coming back to you saying, Daniel, you have done everything. Why don't you also do the product design for us? Like literally, develop the product. Is that something which you?
Developing as coding, we
Yeah.
don't do that because I want to keep it as a product design and like focused on this as a studio. And
Hmm.
if they need developers, we have people in our network. We can give contacts and so on, but it's not something I know a lot about, so
Personally
I
do it.
don't
Yeah.
like to just dilute over there. I prefer to do the stuff that I know.
Understand. Understand. Okay, so let's talk more about your journey. Like tell our users, uh, take us back to your roots. Share with our listeners about your upbringing, your childhood. How did your early experiences shaped your journey to eventually you become a visionary entrepreneur? Then you started helping startups, starting mentoring them. And then, were there any key influences in your family or surroundings? Something like, I don't know, rich dad, poor dad kind of situation there that played a significant role in shaping up your entrepreneur spirit?
Uh, My parents were workers, so it's not like my father wanted to have like his own business for a long time, but he actually didn't do it,
Hmm.
and now he's retired, so it's not something it's in his plans at the moment. Uh, so I don't know, on the entrepreneurship side, I wouldn't say that there was like a lot of people around me doing something like this.
Hmm.
Uh, like I I grew up learning like in high school. I've done math and IT, and in a way that's how I started to do a bit of a coding, and I figured out that I don't really like it. But what I like to do is like just code that part of like how people should interact with the thingy that's on the screen, whatever that thing was.
Hmm.
Um, and this is how I started in a way more towards the design phase instead of the coding part. Now most people that I know, at least from my generation, then that were like tackling around designs and like doing Photoshop and so on, they ended up doing branding. But as I mentioned, by a fortunate event, I ended up doing UX because I had the chance to actually work in one of the companies that today probably would call a startup studio,
Hmm.
and there I had I had I wouldn't say like official mentors, but I worked along people that were really good in what they were doing. And this is how I learned about products and how to, in a way, design, but not necessarily like design in Figma, but like think about creating products and building them, and the all the stuff that goes into from those early MVPs up to a successful product that has millions of users.